8.5, changing fractions to decimals. We saw earlier in the year how we could change easy fractions into decimals, but they all had denominators that could be easily changed to 10, 100 and 1000. So for instance, we know if we had 1/5, that would equal 2/10, which then is going to be 0.2. If we had 1/4, that would be 25 over 100, which is 0.25. But now what we're going to look at is how to deal with any fraction. And the way in which we do that is we do it by considering that the fraction line, so the line separating the numerator and the denominator, is the same as the division sign. So to write any fraction as a decimal, we simply do the division. So if we had 7/8, that means 7 divided by 8. So then we just divide 7 by 8. So we'll put 7 under the bus shelter and we'll divide it by 8. I'm going to put in a number of decimal points, and I'm going to put the decimal point in line with the decimal point in the 7, and we carry out the division. So 8 into 7 doesn't go, so we put down a 0 and carry a 7. 8 into 7, 70, goes 8 times, so 8 8s are 64, and we'll carry on 6. 8 into 60 goes 7 times, with the remainder of 4, and 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So 7 over 8 would be 0.875 as a decimal. Now these work for the other two examples that we looked at, so 1/5 and 1/4. So we could do 1 divided by 4. I'm going to put in a couple of decimal places and line up my decimal points. So 4 into 1 doesn't go, we'll carry the 1. 4 into 10 goes twice with 2 left over, and 4 into 20 goes 5, which matches up with what we already knew. So obviously we can change any fraction into a decimal using this method, but it's much easier to try and get it as a fraction out of 10 or 100, because then we just put it into the decimal straight away. But if it can't be done, if it's going to be an awkward number, trying to get up to 1000, or if it's if there's a number with a prime number in the denominator, it's going to be quite difficult to do. So it would be much easier to do the division instead. Example 7. Write the following fractions as decimals. If they do not go exactly, write them to 4 decimal places. Now just on that, if we're working to 4 decimal places, that means we're going to have to work to 5 decimal places to consider rounding. So the 5th decimal place is the decider number when we're working to 4 decimal places, and the 4th decimal place would be the changer. So if we're asked to go to 4 decimal places, we need to do our working out to 5 decimal places. So if we start with 3/8, that means 3 divided by 8. So I'm going to put 3 under the bus shelter, and I'll go to 3 decimal places to begin with. So divided by 8. And I need to put in my decimal point just to make sure they all line up. So 8 into 3 doesn't go, so put down a 0 and carry a 3. 8 into 30 goes 3 times, so 3 8s are 24, with a remainder of 6. 8 into 60 goes 7 times, with a remainder of 4. And then 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So 3 8s is 0.375. Example B, 2/3. So what we're going to do is we'll put 2 under the bus shelter, and we're going to divide it by 3. I'm going to put 5 decimal places in, and I'm going to put my decimal point in first as well. So 3 into 2 doesn't go, so we'll put down a 0 and carry a 2. 3 into 20 goes 6 times, with a remainder of 2. 3 into 20 goes 6 times, with a remainder of 2. 3 into 20 goes 6 times, with a remainder of 2. 3 into 20 goes 6 times, with a remainder of 2. 3 into 20 goes 6 times, and we don't care about the next remainder and carrying on any further. We're working to 4 decimal places, which means we need to work to 5 decimal places to check with rounding. So let's write this number out. So it's 0.66666. We put in our dashed line after the 4th decimal place. The 6, the decider, is bigger than 5, so we're going to round up. and the changer is a 6, it's going to go to a 7. So the answer to 4 decimal places is 0.6667. For the fraction 2 and 1/16, any fraction that starts off with 2 and something, that's always going to be 2 point something. So what we can do here is just look at the number 1/16 and change that into a decimal. Now to divide by 16, that's the same as dividing by 2 and then dividing by 8, or you could divide by 4 and then by 4 again, or you could do any combination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 1 by 2 first of all, and then by 8. Now I'm going to set it as a reverse bus shelter, so I'm going to keep all the working out underneath. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 2 first of all. I'm going to put in my decimal points. So 2 into 1 doesn't go, it goes 0 and we carry a 1. 2 into 10 goes 5, and that's it. Now what I want to do is to divide 0.5 by 8, and I'm going to put in an extra few zeros because I'm not really sure, and I've done 5 decimal places there because we need to work to 4. So let's divide this. I need to put in my decimal point first of all. So 8 into 0 doesn't go. 8 into 5 doesn't go, and we carry a 5. 8 into 50 goes 6 times with 2 left over. 8 into 20 goes twice with 4 left over. And 8 into 40 goes 5 times, and that's it. We don't need to, there's no remainder, so we don't need to carry any further. So what we have is that 1/16 is 0.0625, so then 2 and a 16th is going to be 2.0625, because we need to remember about the 2 at the start.